This Ian Hazakostas has done some kind of like what do they call it? TED Talk, if you will. He was at some kind of convention and he was going over some news, and it's taken the internet by storm when it comes to all the WoW content creators. So let's go ahead and see what we have. I lined up a video for us here by Marcelian, and we're going to see what this is all about.
Hello there, welcome back to Marcelian Online, and I hope you are sitting down because the add-on apocalypse is going to get hit, and huge changes have already been confirmed by Blizzard, especially Ian Hazakostas in the latest interview with PC Gamer. Things that we've been speculating about for 3 years at the very least, and they're now pretty much confirmed. And you're probably gonna have to say bye-bye to a lot of the add-ons, but it's actually way better than you think, and it is maybe one way that we could get a new version of WoW that's finally fun, easy, simple to play for you and everybody else. So what exactly is going to happen?
Everybody's always been talking about WoW 2. You know, he'll probably get into it here, but like everyone's talking like the last Titan could be kind of like Final Fantasy 14 Reborn.
Favorite add-ons safe, and which ones will you have to get used to not using anymore? First of all, just to answer the last question, it's not going to happen in the War Within. Although, to also be fair and to kind of point out that we and pretty much maybe all content creators and other news websites have pointed out that this has been happening since at least Dragonflight, when the edit mode has been introduced, completely outdating a bunch of other UI add-ons that were doing something similar. Of course, it came out in a very basic state that was not really replacing a lot of the add-ons that we know and love, but has been gradually being improved to give you different customizations when it comes to your action bars, your quest add-ons, all of that stuff.
And I think that this was a great addition when they did this release of the edit mode when it comes to your UI. That was able to help a lot of people because they took what ElvUI, though not at the scope and level that they can do it at, they were able to make it, and I'm sure they will improve on it. Same thing with the cooldown manager. You'll be able to see as they gradually grow, they'll be improving that functionality and the customability of it to be able to customize it more, basically, because in its current state, people don't really like that they can't move certain spells that they really want to keep track of, and I'm sure they'll get into it.
Stuff, and it's getting improved more and more, and more and more people are starting to use it outside of stuff like, I don't even know, Bartender or whatever they were using at the time, or maybe you are using still that add-on, and let us know in the comment section down below to tell us exactly what's going on. And hey, if you like this style of video that's more freestyle and unscripted, because this is not scripted and I'm so afraid of stuttering right now, then consider checking our Patreon, and the link is down in the description. You're going to be supporting our channel. You're going to get access to some really cool goodies, especially our player profile.
I do use their player profile. I found it very, very functional, and it's very nice and clean and very, very helpful when it comes to me doing the raid and also the Mythic Plus content.
Going to get the boot whenever this add-on apocalypse is going to get hit. So let's actually look exactly what add-ons will leave, and probably the best and most anticipated one will be weak auras, or essentially combat auras. Those will be completely deleted, and what this means essentially, because of course, big disclaimer to everybody, when all of this is going to happen, we're not going to just rip off the band-aid right away and then just have the game that it is now, but without add-ons. That's not going to happen. This implies that most of the things in game will be changed, and these changes have already started. So let's take this one at a time. Combat auras will be gone, which means, first of all, the classes will be simpler. And we have seen this with some of the reworks like Red Paladin, which is now the most popular spec in the game.
I do play Red Paladin. I am loving it. I used to be 100% Havoc Demon Hunter, and they made that class so complex with the Momentum Initiative gameplay that I ended up hurting my party because I'm not very good at it. It outgrew me. But I mean, I still love the class. I just wish that we had Sinful Brand back. I don't know. You guys let me know down in the comments what you think about that take, but I really did enjoy Sinful Brand, and it kept me competitive within the party.
Arguably the easiest spec and simplest spec in a game. Maybe not easiest, but it is the simplest spec in a game to play.
And has great utility. I love the utility of Ret Pally.
That requires maybe almost no add-ons to actually fully function at the peak of its performance. Most likely, more specs will follow. We're not going to have all of the specs be as simple as red. Definitely. Right, Blizzard? Right? Come on, man. But we're gonna have less intricate classes that will need 12 pages of documentations and theories and PhDs to understand how their rotations function, which will of course make the game less stressful to play. You won't have to go to different websites to gather all that information, and you can just log in and play. And that's the main thing. The other thing will be that we'll just have fewer, easier procs that we need to track. So you won't have your top right part of the screen just filled with rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of buffs, where 90% of them just don't really matter because you're never going to look at them, see them, and use that information for any decisions while you are in combat. CC, like stuns, will also show more clearly when they hit DR or diminish.
Yeah, one of the things that Blizzard did, and I'm pretty sure some of you already know what I'm going to say, but back for interrupts, you could do like a Chaos Nova, just group-wide stuns that would reset the cast time and like stop. They would act like an interrupt. They took that away, so we have had to learn that we no longer get that ability. The crowd control DR visibility, I think that mostly refers to things like trying to stun somebody that's already been stunned. What's going to be maybe the percentage of something that you can control in that fashion, and we'll have to see how that works. Honestly, I don't really know how that's going to work, so I'm interested.
Finishing returns, because we know that if we have like 4 stuns, the 4th one that launches will just not do anything because the mobs will be immune. Stuff like that will be easier to see, and you will not need add-ons to tell you when that's safe to keep a crowd controlling. Debuffs that you're going to be tracking, for instance like tank debuffs in raids specifically addressed by Ian, will be more clear to see when you have to tank swap, and you won't need stuff like, I don't know, DBM or Bigwigs to tell you taunt now, taunt now, taunt now. It will be more obvious. Now, of course, this will be the end result. We don't know how this will actually be implemented, but at least it's going to be fun to see. As I mentioned, much to our chagrin, nameplates will be gone in the sense that a lot of the functionalities of plater style add-ons, where the nameplates change their color, their position.
That's going to be... That's unfortunate, but I hope that they make it so that it's in the game, because it's such a great thing to see. So if you're looking at this, the orange is what I would want to make sure that I kick. You know what I'm saying? So I believe the progression usually goes from green, yellow, red, or orange. So it's kind of like your must kicks that you don't want to get off and let the party get killed.
Whatever they do based off of what happens in combat will not exist in the game anymore, but you will be able to customize your nameplate, like the size and aspect and visual aspect, which, I mean, in my mind, that sounds like skins for nameplate, which that could be a cool thing to add. But that will mean that the mechanics that the mobs cast, or the types of the mobs that you normally use different color nameplates for, will be less important to track, or fewer of them exist in general, making encounters, mostly in Mythic Plus, because that's usually where this matters a little bit more, will make encounters easier to address, and you won't have to juggle 17 style of interrupts, crowd controls, CCs, and mobs to tap target to do all of this. Like that will most likely gone, making the game less, let's say, stressful to approach, because the challenge will still be there, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Like, who of you haven't kicked yourself in the ass when you're trying to when you don't want to let your team down? You know, like, there's a lot of people, like, how are they trying to invite new players into doing Mythic Plus? One of the things that I've another content creator that I watch, he runs down how some of the hardest keys for people to start learning are 2 to 7. And the frustration, the unwillingness to try and help everyone around you, that could be the toxicity that a lot of people talk about in World of Warcraft, but that hopefully you aren't in that causes you not to want to go back. Let's make it easier in the sense that it's more of a training ground, maybe. But then one of the things that I also see is the moment that you two chest it, then the person that's that key holder who isn't ready to really start pushing all of those keys, they still try. And that's okay. But, you know, then these people also, they don't want to go and watch any of the videos that you might want to go watch to try and see if they're going to be making the kicks, learning the route, learning, you know, what the actual things are. Does that need to happen in games? Do you have to watch a video on YouTube to try and learn how to play a game? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, because I do watch it. I do watch them, but how many people really want to put in that kind of work when you have someone coming home from work and then they don't have very much time to play? It's just one of those things I want to see how that can work.
Tracking your party's cooldowns will also be gone, and maybe you're not doing this already, but if you're not, here's what that means and why you'll still be happy to hear that this will happen. When you're playing in a party, especially in Mythic Plus once again, but also in raids, you normally track your party's interrupts so that you know when interrupts are available for specific casts to go off so that you don't wipe. Now, if we're not going to be able to track that anymore, means we're going to have fewer spells that we need to interrupt, meaning bonsai for warlocks.
I haven't been using the interrupt tracker. I used to have it, but I'm trying to go less with add-ons and less with weak auras. So I only have 4 weak auras, and when it comes to my add-ons, you know, I do have your DBM. I do have your handy notes. Now, handy notes from my understanding is going to still be allowed in the game. They're going to be there. They're going to be still available. They're mostly, Blizzard is mostly trying to get into the way that everything acts in the higher end content, such as your Mythic Plus, your raids.
Casters, priests that have some of the shittiest interrupts in the game possible. So yeah, you can play those. You will not be kicked out of a party because you don't have a good interrupt anymore. That sounds pretty freaking incredible, don't you think? And of course, if we're not going to be able to track defensives so that you know, oh my god, can I pull this next pack? Let me see if my party has defensives to survive it. If we're not going to track those anymore, that means packs in general will be less deadly, meaning that you won't just die out of the blue because, oh my god, I didn't.
So does that mean that Blizzard is going to make the game more accessible? Does that mean that Blizzard is going to make the keys easier? Are you going to feel good about that? Let me know. Let's have a conversation. It's always good about the discussion of it, because I really feel that when people when they're looking at that, it's kind of like a Final Fantasy 14. In that game, you really don't have to kick. You don't have to really kick. You're going to be fine as long as your tank, who never loses threat, by the way, can always survive.
Realize I needed to press the defensive there. That will be addressed as well. So yay once again. And of course, DPS cooldowns. If we're not going to be able to track those, that means that pools in dungeons will be also less complex and punishing, where we can just play the game and not, micromanage everything. Although that is a little bit fun, and that's probably not going to go away in its entirety. You'll probably still be able to kind of communicate with people either through voice comms or through party chat. Okay, we want to pull this big thing. But at least it won't be as necessary, meaning, I don't know, maybe dungeon timers will be more relaxed. Maybe packs will be easier designed with fewer mobs that are like super important to kill really quick, and everybody needs cooldowns for those. So once again, less punishing combat. Now that most of these will be addressed and altered and most likely gone, what will remain? Well, damage meters will be part of the basic UI.
I heard that. They want to try and get the damage meters into the game. And one of the things that I also heard from Max, if you don't know who Max is, he is like the 21st man of the Race the World First guys, which is Limit or Liquid. They used to be Complexity Limit, now they're called Liquid. And now he got to interview Ian, and him and Dratnos interviewed Ian Hazakostas, who is the game director, and they were able to go into this a bit, but he's trying to inspire his group, his company, not his company, but his team, to start bringing everything away. So what I was saying is, Max was saying, well, maybe you should, use as a consultant these guys that have been doing these add-ons for years. Pick their brains, employ them for a time. You can, like I said, it's a consultant position, So you could have them come in, help you make these things, tell you if you're going in the right direction, and you'll be able to get a lot more of these things in game. So would that mean that, like, for instance, Plater, if that's going to go away, what kind of information can they put there to let you know that these kicks are going to be detrimental if you don't do them? I really want to know.
Which is something that has to remain, because this is a measure of performance. And to address this as well, Ian did mention that logs will probably be looked at in the hope of being removed. So this is something that I'm not 100% sure how this will work, because logs are a measure of performance, and WoW will still be, or at least endgame WoW will still be, a performance-based combat. And I don't think that can go away, because that will kill WoW for a lot of people. I understand not everybody engages with that style of gameplay, but a lot of people do, and that's still pretty fun, and that is how endgame should be. So we'll see how that actually develops, but damage meters are very important, because you actually don't really know if what you're doing is good enough to complete this content. And speaking of performance-based combat, they have addressed the rotational helper, whether it's the one button rotation or the general highlights on your action bars. That is still underdeveloped, and they're still thinking if they should allow a functionality of the rotational helper to be addressed where players can import a string, a code that will alter their rotational helper to be more in line with their current theory crafted class, to make sure that their rotation is as up to date as possible with how that spec is supposed to be played, so it's not outdated or wrong if, let's say, a new class buff happens and you need to press different types of spells.
I did listen to a content creator that works on GSE. That's a sequencer, and he tested both of the one button, and then he went against his GSE, because he actually makes some of the content that you would use if you use that program. And he said that his GSE was still working good and better, but it's not as intuitive as the one button rotation that actually knows if you're in single or you're in a you have multiple mobs going on. Hey Jen, how are you? Welcome in.
I think this is actually a bad idea if they implement it, because this goes against what they're actually trying to do, especially with the rotational helper, because this will make people still go to external sources and theory crafts and find the most up-to-date string and import it into the game and interact with the game in a less gamer way, but more in a...
This is talking about your favorite thing, the one button that you want to use. The one button.
coding programmer way where you alter your things by, importing certain types of codes. But of course, we have that for Talon loadouts, so maybe I'm wrong. We'll see how this evolves. And timers for encounters will also be part of the baseline rotation, which means overall that you don't need deadly boss mods or big wigs, do raids, and that means that...
So that in WeakAura, that would be the raid ability timeline. I recently deleted mine, but I need to hear, is Blizzard going to give you more, boss lines? And they have been. They're in the game. You just have to pay attention to them and then know what they are tied to, what ability the boss is going to do next. It's not bad. It's not bad. But they're really going to be getting into this. Now, do I expect this to come out in the next year? No, I probably don't see this coming out for a few years. We'll see, because every time that they release something, Blizzard, they're trying to get it into your hands. They want us to play test it, essentially, because we are paying them to play test their game. Hey, how you doing, Diver? So we're there. We're testing their game, but they are just going to release it half-baked. Now, that's one of the things that community does not want to have happen, because we want to just play, and we don't want it to be so buggy. Now, I believe in the beginning, when they're starting to release all of these add-ons, they're not going to disable the add-ons that we're using. They're going to wait and see what the community is saying, because you'll have everyone out there trying it, and they're going to wait for the feedback.
Either you'll have timers, but also mechanics will be a little less punishing. We will have fewer swirlies to move out of for casters, because they want us to be able to not have to use weak auras and timers and figure out exactly, okay, when do we have to move, meaning that they will give us more time to move out of swirlies and fewer swirlies overall, because once you have, as Ian mentioned, all of these add-ons that tell you exactly when things happen and how exactly to deal with those, the only way to keep challenging players is to make them super punishing and need a fast reaction time to be able to be dodged. And if we're taking all of those away, that means we're reverting all of this, so we're gonna have fewer of them and more time to react to them, making raids and dungeons more playable for more people, lowering the difficulty of overall encounters across the board. Now, all of these will come gradually as the time progresses, and we have seen this with the edit mode over the years, like I mentioned before, where they keep adding more and more stuff to it, and they've addressed the cooldown manager, which we've made a video on.
One thing that I believe they haven't been able to do yet, I swear to God, they haven't been able to do this yet, and I really don't understand why. But this bar down here, you can't move that fucking thing. Like, you can't move it anywhere. You could try, but then it snaps right back. Did he have? I didn't. Well, I'll try and do my own investigation again.
Address the cooldown manager, which we've made a video on a couple of months ago, whenever it was testable, that it's incomplete and it's not really doing what weak auras are supposed to be doing. But maybe it's not supposed to do that because
You moved yours, really? Huh? My shit's bugged then.
Don't have to have that much complexity within a class, so you need all of those weak auras and options for the cooldown manager to function. But if there's something that you would need a weak aura for, they will likely look at cooldown manager to solve that problem for you in a less invasive way. And what this all means for WoW is, first and probably most obvious thing, is that we're kind of preparing WoW for consoles if we need fewer external add-ons, which are probably likely
Now, this is one of the things that Blizzard is doing. They're keeping everything kind of close to the chest, you know, close to the vest. They're not showing their cards. But I believe, since now they are, you know, owned by Microsoft and they own Xbox, that this is going to be happening. Yes, I went back to using LVI. How you doing, Cheeky? I went back to using LVI, so that's where I'm at. But not that I didn't like the edit mode, it just didn't suit all of my needs.
Impossible to get on consoles.
Yeah, you can move it on there.
We can actually port World of Warcraft to Xboxes and PlayStations and maybe Nintendo Switches, who knows? And we can play it on the couch in our living room. That's a different...
Wait, what does it say? Console WoW is finally here. After leveling to 70 on the Steam Deck, I prefer playing on a controller over a keyboard and mouse. Not only is it viable, but it's so comfortable to play this way. Well, there you go. So, you know, does anybody know, is WoW already controller accessible? I'm curious. I mean, this would be great for me if I bought a Switch and I could play it on my lunchtime. It is okay. I didn't know if it was or not. You know, because other games that are MMOs, they've already gone over to being available on console. How you doing, Jesse?
Kind of dream that I kindly want to see be enacted too. But also, more importantly, and this is interesting, mobileification of WoW is a term that Marcellian uses because, as we know right now, Final Fantasy XIV is preparing itself to be launched on mobile platforms.
No shit.
So it's not necessarily unheard of that WoW might follow suit. Of course, this will probably happen at least after the World Soul Saga, so you don't have to worry right away.
I did not know that it was available on Steam Deck. Did not know that. You know, but that's something that to consider, you know, although I recently heard that Nintendo is asking for a bunch of money for their new Steam Deck 2 that's coming out, which is, you know, to each his own. If you want to buy something so expensive, if you have the expendable cash, by all means, take advantage of it, I guess. I mean, it's to each their own, as they say.
This will be, once again, a gradual process, so it's all going to happen without maybe even you realizing it, because if you think that this will just happen tomorrow, and tomorrow you're not going to be able to play the game because you don't have any of the add-ons, you probably haven't even realized that it's been happening for years, ever since, at the very least, of the beginning of Dragonflight, with the edit mode, with the private auras that they seen that were terrible, and they're not going to do again, as confirmed by Ian as well. But which add-ons do you wish to retain in the game, and which add-ons would you be super happy to let go of? Let us know in the comment section down below. And of course, check this video out on the upcoming buffs that are probably live as you watch this video.
Fantastic. I'll go ahead and link this for you guys. And by all means, man, it's don't be in panic mode. Don't be in panic mode. I really feel this is not going to be a huge a wave of things that are going to come out like right now. Like I said, they've got to cook. You know, he's just, I think in the vision that Ian has, he was just actually trying to communicate to the community what and how he sees everything coming for the future of WoW. And, you know, we as WoW players, we're an older breed. But you're trying to make this game viable for the next 10 to 15, 20 years or longer. And, you know, you got to try and entice the younger people to come in. How do you do that? Because all these games now are just so, what you would call, you know, everything is like a TikTok. You got to try and keep them involved, entertained. And that's one of the things. Thank you guys for being here. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, share. I also stream on Twitch, Twitch/Achilles_1970, Monday through Saturday. And if you want to join in the discussion of this all, let me know. I appreciate y'all.